the 8 full schools in Pontiac that have recently been sold. And so I have an illustrious panel today. I was looking for Mr. Price. I seen him earlier, but he's escaped. So when he comes back, I'll definitely bring him up to talk about some different ideas and kind of give us a history on some of the schools. I know he knows the history on the Pontiac school district. But we have Cole Yoakum, which is with Micah 6. Wave your hand, Cole. And so he's going to tell you they're an awesome community group that are interested in community gardens and different things. We have the illustrious Rick David here, and Rick David is the new director for Lighthouse. Yes, so this is his first official public TV interview, so you guys are all part of history. And then we have Mr. Michael Stevens. He told me not to call him Mr. Stevens, he told me to call him Michael. But he was the purchaser, and his company was the purchaser of those 8 schools. And so I just really want to commend him personally on behalf of the city of Pontiac for actually taking the opportunity to want to hear and engage from the people on what should happen to those schools. A lot of times people buy buildings and they don't want to hear anything. They've got their plan and they're going to do what they want to do anyway. But he wanted to have a forum tonight to actually talk about what's happening. And so the lady who's in the hat in the back is very shy. That's our illustrious city council president, We also have Councilman Don Woodward, who's here. We've got library board members, Joyce Allen somewhere around here. Right here. Hey, Miss Joyce Allen. And we have our library board president, Miss Rosie Richardson, also in the audience. We got Donna Reed for the Chamber of Commerce, and they're having an event this Wednesday. Where's that going to be at in the morning? Let's see.
It's going to be
Purdue, Crowfoot, Jefferson Whittier.
Yeah. Mr. David, you want to introduce yourself?
So let me just do this. First of all, let's look at each of the 8 schools, and if you'd raise your hand if you are in the neighborhood of that school, just for the fun of it. So first of all, let's start with Webster. Is anybody in the, and that is in District?
It's been an amazing place because my front door opens up onto the playground at Webster. And by the time I got there, Webster had been closed down for a decade and a half. No one was doing anything with it except, breaking in to start fires and, tear stuff up. And so we said, like, let's really embrace it. We have this amazing asset right in front of our house. And so we started playing soccer with kids out there every week. We started doing neighborhood barbecues out there every month and bringing folks together on that playground and really using that building as an asset for strengthening my neighborhood again. And that's gone really well, and that's something that has been incredible for my neighborhood is the ability to start using that space again, and just somebody stepping up and saying we're going to use that space again. And when I look at these schools and when I look at the possibility that not only the playgrounds have for every neighborhood that one of these schools do, but to use the building again for an outpost of services or entertainment or recreation or giving kids in this stupid town something to do. Like, it drives me nuts when they're just like, they're just hanging out on the street and getting in trouble when everything we used to have rec centers and we used to have summer programs for kids, and we just don't have that anymore because we're just not at that place right now. And the idea that these schools can be turned around into something like that, I mean, I think we've seen a little bit of that in my neighborhood, but the possibility that comes with renovating these schools with a neighborhood focus again is an amazing thing and has great potential.
All right, awesome.
I'm from District 1, it'll be the Jefferson area, and I just wanted to find out if in the near future, would you be amenable to sitting down with some of us, because pretty much everybody in here is of the same mind, and we want something in the neighborhood for the kids. So I'm not going to kind of regurgitate that. I'm just going to ask, in the near future, when you start narrowing down what you might want to do with those buildings, will you be amenable to sitting down with us again?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My name is Kiwante Wallace. I am a youth pastor out here in Pontiac, Michigan. I've been working with Jim and talking to Michael occasionally. And it's inspiring to me that you guys want something for the community, for the kids. I was in foster home growing up, so I was able to go to Jefferson, Webster, all of these different schools in Pontiac. I was able to go and attend, so I know what it is. And I went to foster home. When I was in foster home, I was in all these different locations. What I have here today is just an outlook on what we're trying to do. We're trying to open up a community center. Before the schools were bought, I've been doing it at my church, getting different people to come and doing different community things. And the school was just the icing on the cake. Wow, now the vision is even bigger because now we can have a school to operate these things. YMCBW is the name of the community center, and it stands for Young Minds Can't Be Wasted. But it's a community center not only for the young kids, it's for the seniors. We offer so much. Our goal is we have a high rate of dropouts and parents that's illiterate. So we're gonna offer family services and different outlets for people to come without judgment, without being pointed at, without being ridiculed. These are things that our community is suffering from. So I want you guys to take this and look at the community vision, because when I put this together, I did a little poll on Facebook. Got like 5,000 prayers. Probably a lot of you guys are part of that, but also with my church, and I work in the mental health field. So I did a little poll, and what we're lacking is a community effort, a community attitude. So with this building, it's going to offer seniors to come in and have their days there, and after hours for them to also come in and learn computer literacy, or learn how to, or teach. So if you want to take this and pass it along, you're more than welcome. And here's my business cards as well. And it's just a brainstorm and put things together, because like she said, we all talk about the kids and then they get lost in the crossfire of everything else. All right?
It's got to be, like Councilman Woodward said, he talked to Ed Lee. Ed Lee has a pet project of doing a skilled trades program. And I think that would be great if he did that, because he actually has a company where he could, encourage employment through his company, which we can't do. But these schools need to be rehabilitated because there's a lack of skilled trades in the local community. So I think we're presented with multiple opportunities to do a lot of different things here. It's not just one thing in all these communities. They can be used for a lot of different things. Washington is 108,000 square feet. Purdue is 98,000 square feet. Crowfoot is 50,000 square feet. Webster is 45,000 square feet. So it's a lot of space. I'm talking just about building square footage. That doesn't even include the land. I'd like to see, like what Cole is doing as Webster, I'd like to see that become a farmer's market. I'm not the only one who had this idea. I've put this out, and a lot of other people have had that idea. Maybe a farmer's market, international market with a community garden or something. Something that we can spread around and maybe franchise and multiply in other areas, not just in Pontiac. Could be, if we're successful here, it could become a program for the nation. There's a lot of communities around the country. When it comes to the Phoenix Center, a lot of different ideas there. We want to do, I've talked to a lot of people about including the arts, a sculpture garden, some kind of water feature, entertainment plazas, graduations again, opening it up on a daily basis to the residents. Talked to Lodge, Jim, and Monica about bringing in free Wi-Fi. What Dan Gilbert is doing in Detroit, he has to lay the infrastructure down right now. We have the infrastructure already down. We can do it like that. In 4 months, we could have southern downtown Pontiac Wi-Fi capable, high-speed broadband. It's really just what you can think and what we can fund is what we can do.
Mike, you got a question? And then Ms. Richardson.
I have two quick, just logistical questions and then feedback on potential vision for the property. So my first logistical question is, do you envision ultimately selling the properties to whatever the entity would be next, or is your interest to hold on to the properties and either lease or be the, sort of the direct owner of those properties?
Well, there's not one specific answer. I mean, we're trying to match, I want to engage the community, and I don't want to just start selling things. We yes, we do want to sell some of these properties. I can't manage all of them ourselves. But if we can find the right developer with the right project, the right intentions, then we can offer a very good price that would be to benefit the community as well as the developer. Yeah.
And my second logistical question is, do you have a sense about what annually your burden will be in terms of taxes, like on just one of the smaller schools?
No, not yet.
But it could be a big deal.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal.
Well, don't depress them today.
So on a more positive, I've got my ideas for what could be. So I think that what Rick said is very important about how these are the nucleus of a lot of neighborhoods. They were built around it. I'm concerned about what happens in the now and in decades to come with our aging senior population. Where in Pontiac do they have to live? And that a few, maybe not most or even more than one or two, a few could be well suited to be independent senior living, not necessarily assisted living facilities, but where they have basically their own apartments, but it's set up where. And my other vision for those that might be on the more heavily trafficked streets is it could be in conjunction with the farmers market, but in Ferndale they have a Rust Belt market, and in Detroit they have the Russell Bazaar, but basically buildings that had a very different purpose originally, but now have served as sort of an incubator for innovation, so that people that are just getting started with a small business or want to see if they have a shot with selling their wares or what they've created or what they bake. And this, one of those facilities could be that incubator, and it doesn't have to be deconstructed. A school room, you know, a classroom would be maybe a perfect little temporary facility that wouldn't be high rent per se, because when it's pooled together with all these other innovators, it could be a really powerful vehicle, and it could almost serve as both a farmer's market / bazaar that springs to life. And we just heard this week the announcement of microloans through Huntington Bank and Oakland County, a partnership specifically for Pontiac. And if they are baking something or building something or trying to sell something, where exactly are they doing that? There isn't necessarily the ideal umbrella that could really be powerful. And so I just want to share that because it's a fantasy,
great idea.
a vision.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
We should.
We got Ms. Rosie Richardson, then we have President Waterman. But while you're thinking about those questions, I also want Mr. Stevens to hear what you don't want to see in the community. Because a lot of times we get things that are not particularly neighborhood friendly and nobody has spoken about it. I mean, we hear the good things, which is great. We want to hear that. But we also want to let them know what he would have a conflict with if he tried to put it next door to you. So, Ms. Richardson and then President Waterman.
Rosie Richardson, Chair of the Huntington Library Board. Thank you for embracing the library and the things that you've done in the past and supporting us in what we're doing with your efforts.
I'd like to see a coalition come out of this meeting with people in the neighborhood, with the businesses, with the churches, because we all have great ideas. But one thing I do not want to see in District 1 is halfway houses. I do not want to see that coming into District 1. So I'm letting you know that. And it's all great for trying to bring in to maybe get our homeless off the streets, because I know Councilman Williams, I was supposed to go down to Detroit with him. There is a project that has been started in Detroit. I would like for you to look into that project that was started in Detroit about helping the homeless. But first and foremost, I want to see a coalition come out of this meeting.
Anybody else got a question?
I had my hand up.
Oh, Councilwoman Peeler, Pro Tem Peeler, go ahead.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Michael shared some ideas with you about the flea markets, the bazaars, and I'm here to share with you the same thing, but I have a school, McCarroll. McCarroll is on an easy access. It's on Edison and Montcalm. It's got a somewhat relatively decent sized parking lot in the back of it, but it's not extremely large, so it would be perfect for a flea market type thing and or a farmer's market. Easy in, easy out. It's only 2 floors. They could do the bazaar upstairs, they could do the grocery part downstairs. Just a thought.
We're actually in McCarroll right now cleaning it out. I think Monday we'll be done with it.
Fantastic. Also, Emerson would be good for senior housing, independent senior housing, because that is basically a one-story school, if I remember right. And senior housing would be something advantageous.
Bringing up Emerson, I'm very happy that everybody's here, that there's a lot of community. The only thing that I would really like to see taken away by you guys from this meeting is I need help protecting these schools.
Right.
Emerson is in terrible shape. Washington was in terrible shape. At this point, there's nothing left to steal. All the copper is gone, wiring to plumbing. So at this point, it's like you say, the kids got a lot of energy. There's nowhere to direct this energy. We're going to work on that in the future. But until these plans are done and enacted, we need to engage the community to stop destroying these schools. I mean, it's really heartbreaking to walk through some of these schools and to see just outright vandalism and destruction for no reason. So please help me protect these schools until there's something going on. Because Emerson is in terrible shape. And the only way to really protect these schools is to have activity going on, to redevelop them so that they're being used on a daily basis. But until that time comes, we need to protect the schools. Otherwise, they're just going to see bulldozers. And that would be a heartbreaking shame.
I don't know if everybody heard that in the back. He said that if they're not protected, they're going to need bulldozers, meaning that there will not be a school. And one of the things I think that Rick David talked about was the schools were a nucleus to the community. At one time, Pontiac was laid out in such a beautiful way that almost every 10 blocks you had a school. And it was always walkable for people to go to. Those used to be neighborhood nucleuses. But some of those, for example, in my district, we've got Longfellow, which is right nestled in the heart of the community.
Right.
Beautiful school, right? But then you've got Purdue, which is around the corner, that hasn't had any love or attention or anything paid to it. And so if we can engage, like you said, activities, maybe plant gardens around these schools or do something, I think we need to get a volunteer corps that comes out of this to say, how are we going to beautify these buildings in the meantime? Because if it's not a priority to watch them, for every dollar or pipe that gets stolen, that's one less dollar that can go to the kids or anybody else. And the bottom line is, they're not going to do anything that's not cost effective. And so I know Mike can have a brilliant heart, but I know he's not trying to lose his shirt on these buildings. So I just want to be honest. Okay.
All right. After this.
Arts in elementary and a little bit in middle and a little bit in high school. So we were fortunate enough to get some grant funding, and we started giving the programs, quality programs, to some of the schools. We were in Peace Academy, Arts and Technology Academy, Walton Charter, and at the high school, and we're forming some good relationships. I could do a lot if I didn't have to pay rent. And I just had a meeting with Superintendent Kelly Williams, and I know with $12,000 saved for not having to pay rent, I could provide arts programming to a school. That's once a week for each grade with a quality instructor. The arts work on that emotional, intuitive, abstract thinking, problem solving. They aren't getting it. You have got some brilliant kids in these schools, brilliant kids. And when we had a brain trust. Chris Northcross Jr. is on our board of directors. Chris Sr., Betty Pitchford, Benny Anderson, Bruce Turpin. Anyway, they told us what we needed to hear, what we already knew was to take it to the students, right? We also learned from these individuals that are closely linked to our studio, one, because Renard Small is our artist in residence, so Tarleton and Julia Smaller are friends of our studio. There is so much cool stuff going on in this community, in these different communities, and you've got like young parents, youthful people, and council people, and commissioners coming on board, and then you have retired Pontiac residents who just hit it out of the park. The kind of things that they're doing, and if we could just like pool all that knowledge and maybe bring some of these nonprofits that are making all this great stuff happen together in one location and have a real vibrant center there. I mean, you know, doing murals in the schools and giving these kids projects. Community Art Lab is called a lab because it looks at what everybody is learning from each other. Artists, interns, businesses, residents, the community, the family members of the student artists, and it's kind of what you guys are all talking about. So, you know, we would love to see the arts be a catalyst for change.
Awesome.
It goes along with what Mike was saying. I was checking out, it's called the Mind program they have in Detroit, and it's dealing with music. And with one of the buildings, because of the lack of music in schools, like when I was coming up, everybody took an instrument. Part of this bazaar building can have once we have the space, then we can go after monies or donations for musical instruments. And I'm not talking about just teaching them how to play music, but also the production ends of it and the whole thing, and have a space for that. And if you do that, you will get a lot of children out of trouble, because when you start adding music and playing instruments in the mix, you'll get their attention. And I think that goes along with the bazaar, the vegetable gardens, the farmer's market, and the musical things.
One of the things that we haven't had, I see you now. One of the things we haven't had here is a community showcase. And we need to start bringing people in from all over who are investors to help out, because like you said, all 8 of those buildings are not going to stay operated by the same company. And we need to have some people come to the table now, so a year from now, we can actually see some work in them. So if you know anybody who's interested in bringing music or art or whatever, we need to start bringing them to the table so we can start the process. Anybody who's dealt with the city knows that it's not overnight. So we're going to go with Rick and then we'll go. A community showcase. Investors usually come in, I think they do them in other communities where they have all of the people who are interested, let's say in the high-tech field. They would do a showcase and say, these are the perfect spaces for high-tech here. You got Wi-Fi, you got all the stuff that you need. Come out here, and they basically have like an open house. If you were selling just a regular space, you would have an open house, and you would make sure the building was painted and nice, and then you would bring in those people. But we need to bring in those people on that corporate level to say, okay, listen, we've got 8 schools, and they need to be repurposed, they need to be reused. And if you know any in your circles, we need to start bringing them in now, introducing them to Mr. Stevens and his crew, so they can start having some ideas with that. Mr. Davis, then Mike McKinney,
So I want to make sure that President Waterman's idea of a coalition doesn't disappear. It's awfully easy as you leave, so we've got to figure that out, whether it reflects all 7 districts. That's one level. But I can see a subcommittee. There are decommissioned schools all over the United States, and there needs to be a research, a subcommittee, Teresa, that can say, what are you doing in all the, other, cities like Pontiac and other cities, and we need to collect this information to share it with them. The other part is, we only have one idea, something we don't like. And that is,
I move that there could be no halfway houses in any of these schools.
Yeah, but there's gotta be, there's gotta be other things that we don't want as well. And so somehow, Michael needs to understand what else we don't want. And that might come from your coalition that President Waterman. But a subcommittee on research is very important so that we can understand what other communities and what is working, for a while. Because sometimes it looks good, but it's not there.
On Mr. Newman's point, it reminded me that in Detroit, around the Midtown area, they've turned the Burton School into a theater, a cinema, which obviously could fill a lot of gaps that we have in our community in terms of outlet, and hopefully something that could be a thriving commercial venture. But on that same note, many of the schools have a cafeteria, they have a gymnasium, or they have an auditorium that might have that stage. So when you were talking about the conversion of the space, I want to make sure that we're kind of wrapping our minds around all the different ways in which those schools can be used. But to Mr. David's question, I would suppose I would not want a marijuana grow facility in the middle of a neighborhood.
Right.
Since that's likely to be something in the near future.
Mr. Price?
Depend on your.
Couple of things. One is with regard to school, the building, just like I guess for 30 seconds, and that is we're talking about buildings that have significantly deteriorated because of, for whatever reason, I ain't going there. There's an effort right now in Pontiac to pass a millage, 2.8, so if you can come under the 28 North Saginaw and volunteer to help prevent further deterioration.
Listen, I'll give you a minute at the end of the meeting to talk about your school spirit. We want to stay on topic right now while we got Mr. Stevenson.
So in terms of coalitions, I think it'd be helpful if there was some cheat sheet relative to where these schools, some of these schools are further deteriorated than others. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, I
would
be careful about the wording you're using. Deterioration means that they're crumbling. They're not crumbling.
Okay, some are in better state.
They've been robbed of plumbing and electrical, but the bones of the schools are still good. They were built in the 20s. They're built with craftsmanship. So the roofs might need a little bit of help, but the buildings are good.
So it'd be good if there was some idea of what, because they're different though. I mean, some of them, you'll find them along a different kind of spectrum.
I don't understand. Architecturally, yes, they're all differently laid out.
Conditions.
He's saying some schools need more work than others.
Right, but not like structural. I mean, yeah, they need plumbing, they need wiring, but the bones of the school are good.
And you
right. They're gonna stand the test of time.
So a cheat sheet sometimes would be helpful in terms of how much square footage, what's their relative status, so that people can, in terms of generating ideas on what a building might possibly lend itself to me might be helpful. Just a short cheat sheet. I think that would be helpful.
Number of classrooms.
And what they are. I mean, I have a bias, for example. Jefferson. It's a different kind of facility because it had 2 or 3 different kinds of additions, different periods in its history. I mean, the gym is an auditorium. They have a band room in it that ought to be in reasonable shape. But some idea of what the conditions are might be helpful in terms of doing some progress along the lines with David and President Waterman have spoken of, in terms of subcommittees and coalitions that would form around what the buildings might lend themselves to. Am I making any sense?
Then I think one of the next steps should be involving like Lowe's or Home Depot, because they really strongly really want to make a difference in the community. So I think that should, at some point in time, we should incorporate them in our thinking. Just a suggestion.
And they build into their employees as well. Right. And Alana Hart's the contact at Home Depot Group.
Some love and care around these buildings. So I'm glad that Cole is on the panel so he can give some suggestions, because what he's done at the back of that school is beautiful. And if we can transform some of these other schools, I just remember Miss Stevens, when she's not here, that planted flowers around Jefferson all the time. And so while she was doing that, there was no, there was no problems. So what can we do on a right now tangible level over this summertime period to make sure those schools are watched better would be helpful. And so we want to try to move the conversation in that direction, and then talk about, and I see your hand. So after Cole.
Yeah, I think meetings like this are awesome, and meetings like this, probably the next step would be, in my mind, to happen on a neighborhood level.
Yep.
I mean, canvas, 2 blocks from around that each building, or 3 blocks from around that building, and have those conversations, because it's interesting, like when we do barbecues or we do stuff, and people say, I went to that school, and just their mere presence at that school, like, ties them to it, and they have a pride in it, even though it's closed. Like that's part of their history right now that's closed. and that's a very like meaningful thing to folks, and to not take that into account. I know one of the things I think that people in Pontiac in particular really balk at or get frustrated with is feeling like their opinions and their history and their place is never taken into account in future plans. So even if it's just a conversation where you're talking to people and you say, I know you went here, I know you have these feelings, I know your history's here, and I'm going to do my best to honor that.
Memorial or whatever, regardless of what happens to the school. So that way people know that history, and so when they come by they can see what's on that plaque. They've done an awesome job right in front of City Hall, the library, and some other places with that plaque about the history of GM and different things in the city of Pontiac. So that's a key thing. So your hand, and if anybody's got any questions in the back, raise your hand, and then we'll move on. Okay.
Is Jim here?
Yep.
Hey, Jim, does Knight do much outside of Detroit? Knight Foundation?
Light?
No? Knight.
Jim.
Nice.
The Knight Foundation.
I know they're heavy in Detroit. We were encouraged to submit proposals.
They do offer opportunities outside of Detroit, but usually it's best if you're connected to something.
In Detroit, yeah, because they wanted to have an impact there
We
too.
have some relationships
Well,
with Detroit.
and we're right at the end of the avenue, so.
As a matter of fact, you bring up a very interesting thing. We're going to Mopop, which is on the riverfront, at the end of this month to be a Pontiac voice in Detroit. Anybody interested in contributing to the Pontiac Voice in Detroit slides, company logos, et cetera, contact us at digitallearning.com.
So there's Knight Foundation.
No.
No, would be more challenging, but Kresge does, Kresge also does capital improvement, structural
Yes.
bricks and mortar.
Yes.
And then the State Arts Council does also capital improvements and if you know what you're doing.
So what I'm hearing out of this is philanthropic engagement. If people want to work on that, then that needs to probably be a subcommittee that comes out of the coalition, because we can all go through and find names. I just saw Mr. Maxey come in, and one of the things that was not mentioned today is Pontiac doesn't have any place for its veterans. There's no housing whatsoever for veterans, and I know there's federal dollars that go with that. So maybe that's a consideration for use for one of those buildings in the future. I don't know. But I don't want to hold everybody if we don't get Mr. Norcross.
Yeah, so I don't remember which of you said it, but one of the things you said was in terms of safety of the buildings, occupancy and activity is like one of the biggest things there. And one of the things I would be wondering about is what activities can we as a community or we as individual groups or block park, pubs or whatever host at these schools, at these properties that, maybe it's not every day of the week, but every weekend or something. Maybe it's a soccer game, maybe it's a picnic, maybe it's some kind of a festival or back to school, something or other. But it's something that you're advertising and you're planning and you're disseminating through your community so people who plan ill and plan good know something's happening, know that people are going to be there, and it gives people a reason to go out and participate. So I would just suggest think of an activity, or think of some activities that you can throw. It doesn't have to be anything major, but just something that gets people out. It sounds like what you were saying earlier, is that it just builds on itself. After the ball gets rolling.
Okay. Now, got a question back there?
Yeah, we have a lot of younger people coming to our location, and they're very interested in sports and like doing a flag football tournament or a basketball tournament. So,
what's your location?
What is your location?
Lyrics on Vinyl, LOV, down at 73.
73 Saginaw, Lyrics on Vinyl. They have ideas for Pontiac all laid out. They just brought some of the boards. But if you have something that you think of tonight or the next day or whatever, please bring it by, because they're documenting all of these things. And so when we go after grant money for the city of Pontiac, we're going to use some of that data and some of those things to make that happen. I want to bring up DeBray Newman right now because CNS sponsored all the free food today. So definitely give a hand clap if the Councilman is good. And he's going to tell us about CNS really quick.
Real quick, I won't do a sermonette, you know. That was a joke. Anyway, CNS wants to be the go-to place if you're dealing with mental health issues. In this day and time, we see it prevalent everywhere. One of the things we're doing in the community of Pontiac only right now is we're doing mental health first aid certification training. And that's free. We provide the food, and it's at our Waterford location. I have information here I'll pass out. But we also want to sponsor events. We want to help the community. We want to be involved in the city of Pontiac. I live here. My wife lives here, and a bunch of the people that work there live here. And we want to, as our city continues to grow and get better, we want to also deal with any underlying issues to help people get better also. So if you know of someone that's having an issue, a mental health challenge, there's a common ground number, there's a number. I'll leave my card, you can give us a call, and we'll be glad to help, refer, and train people on what to do in crisis situations. Give us a call.
Now, what does CNS stand for?
Excuse me. Community Network Services. I am DeBray Newman, and I won't hold it up because I have to raise an offering if I stay up here too long. Thank you.
And happy birthday.
It's coming up Tuesday.
I would like to thank my panelists.